Good afternoon, Jessica Garza. Welcome on VH Berries.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am extremely grateful because the monogram decorating the outer surface of the obsidian green table you're seated at is signaling a position of conscious clarity. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Victor?
I am also doing very good, and your place in the narrative frame is the necessary awakening that speaks louder than any line ever could. And this alignment of turbulences is giving us a reason to sit around the table near the window at the Fay Cafe.
Wow. I'm overwhelmed. I'm speechless. Oh, I love that. You are referencing a short film I starred in called A Reason To, right?
Absolutely, Jessica Garza, you're already speechless, and I would love to discuss about that drama and romance short film. Using the classic 4:3 ratio with rounded corners in which you're delivering one of the most remarkable dialogue while sipping a large pumpkin spice blue cheese matcha. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh my gosh. I don't know how to feel about that combination in the drink, but I can tell you more about the short. Yes, so the short film is written and directed by the incredible Saria Rambelow. Our story goes back some ways. We had only known vaguely of each other. We had met maybe once or twice prior to me participating in her short film. Way back in like 2017 or 2018, I had booked a supporting role in a pilot called AP Bio for NBC. And by the time that pilot got picked up to series, I had started working on a different show called Six, which aired on the History Channel. So by the time that show went to series and they were ready to start shooting multiple episodes, I was not available. I couldn't film AP Bio anymore. So they had to recast that role. And in walked Sari. So Sari had replaced me in AP Bio, so controversial. So I had known a lot of the cast members on AP Bio decently, but I had never really gotten the chance to know her because we didn't work together on the pilot. So throughout the years, we'd always been aware of each other. I think we met at a party or two. And when it came time for her to start casting her short, another member of the cast on AP Bio, Eddie Levy, he suggested my name to her. And she was like, oh, that might be incredible. Like, let's see how that goes. So she DM'd me, and she DM'd me, I think, just like a little quick, message and the script. And she was like, if you're interested, like, let's hop on a call next week. And I read the script. Of course, it's incredible. Such a great story, such a love letter to nostalgia and friendship and how friendship changes and we have to be okay with that. And the memories of that friendship can never be taken away. I love the story. I met with her a week later. We talked on Zoom and we got along really well. And she was like, look, if you want to do this with me, I want you to do this with me. Like, let's do this. So I said yes. And we got to know each other really well over the process of rehearsing and shooting this short film. And now she is one of my closest, most dear friends. So I I love telling that story because it's so personal as well as such a great, professional accomplishment in my career.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza. That short film called A Reason To is a major accomplishment for you, as well as being a love letter to nostalgia. And the story is revolving around two friends reuniting after a couple of years apart, and they both are realizing they no longer have anything in common. And on top of that, there is a layer of unspoken memory that separates the pair.
Yes. It's funny that the short film is somewhat about a friendship evolving so much that it comes to an end. Meanwhile, me and Sari were just starting our friendship in real life. But yes, it takes place, or it is about two young women who were friends through their young adulthood, and they go off to college, and they find themselves growing apart. And for Sari's character, she's very confused and doesn't understand why that has happened. But for me, I know so clearly because I thought we were operating in a level of only friendship, even though I potentially wanted more out of that friendship. I had accepted that we were only friends. And Sari's character, Anna, somewhat makes me question that. It makes me question if maybe we could have been more. But then she so quickly just rips that potential away from me. And I think I react in a way that makes me take a step back from that friendship. And as I step back, she just pulls in more. And it creates this tension in our relationship that ultimately comes to a bittersweet potential end.
Furthermore, Jessica Garza, it also starts in the short film with a detail related to the phone contact name, because one has the other saved as Anna, and the other went with Harvey Vroom Vroom, followed by 9 emojis.
Yes, I think that's another story, a divisive tool in Sari's story that depicts how we are on different pages of friendship. I'm in the world where she's just first and last name in my cell phone, and she's still living in the past where we were the bestest of friends and had all these different emojis and inside jokes. And that's why I think Sari really wanted to focus on telling a story that was dedicated to nostalgia and the friendship of it and how hard it is to accept when those things have changed.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza. It is very difficult to accept the fact that Harvey Vroom Vroom will need to be changed to Harvey. And there is a subtext encompassing the acceptation of change when it comes to friendship and questioning the concept of memory, especially with a flip in the middle of the short film, when we get to better understand your character side, and more particularly, a kiss.
Yes. So that kind of scene takes place at a party. I think it was just a drunken college party, where that forever changed our friendship. And I think for Sari's character, Anna, it was very much just an in the moment fun thing to do. And for me, I interpreted it to mean potentially so much more. That's at least my perception and interpretation of it. Obviously, this is Sari's story, and I am a part in telling it. But that is definitely the moment the friendship changes and then starts to break down, because it's hard for my character to understand how that can be so casual for Sari's character, Anna.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza, your character is dealing with that casual kiss conflict. And my favorite line from your character takes place at the minute 13 and 2 seconds, when you're saying, "You and I knew that it was enough until it wasn't."
Yeah, it's a really beautiful it's a really beautiful sentiment where sometimes we like to complicate these real life things that happen to us when they can be so simple, which is just we were as we were until we weren't.
Subsequently, Jessica Garza, to rebuild their friendship, they might need to go through some intense events. Exactly the same type of events that Anna and her partner Abraham experienced in Your Lucky Day.
Yes. Wow, I love that you connected the two Annas together. Yes, Anna and Abraham, or as I like to call him, my baby daddy, we go through quite the journey in the indie thriller Your Lucky Day. Your Lucky Day is a film, a 90-minute film that it's nice and short and concise. You know, we all love one of those that tells a great story in 90 minutes. We also made that film for pennies, so that's why it was 90 minutes. It's a great indie thriller that takes place in a convenience store on Christmas Eve, where a customer walks in and he wins the lottery of $156 million, and he mistakenly announces that out loud in a store full of other customers, and one customer, played by Angus Cloud, he decides to take the opportunity to steal the ticket from this man, and it ensues a deadly hostage situation where we're all fighting for life and death, and potentially the greatest opportunity any of us have a shot at, which is the money.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza, and I would love to explore that feature film called Your Lucky Day, and for your character named Anna Marlene. It all starts when she enters a convenience store to get ice cream, choosing between sea salt caramel and vanilla bean ice cream from the brand Halo Top, and containing exactly 280 calories in each pint, in Anna's own words. Can you tell us a little bit more about the creative process behind that piece of art?
Yes, so that indie was a whirlwind. It all happened very quickly. I auditioned for it in November of 2021. I self-taped it from my apartment in New York City. There were two scenes. I believe it was the one where I'm talking to Sterling about my previous job working as a dental hygienist, and then the second scene is when I am negotiating over the phone with the lead cop, played by Jason. And I sent in my tape. A few days later, I think I received an email to have a chem read with an actor who might play Elliot. I had a chem read, and that's where I met Dan Brown over Zoom, the writer and director of Your Lucky Day. And the chem read went great. The fellow actor I was acting with didn't end up playing Elliot, but I ended up booking Anna Marlene. And about a week after that chem read, I booked it, and they were like, okay, you need to be on set in 6 days. So I had very limited time to process it, to prepare it. That's just the nature of indie filmmaking. You know, when it's a go, and we just need to get it in a can and let's do it. So I went to Los Angeles to film it. That's where I met in person Dan Brown and my partner, Elliot Knight, who's a wonderful, wonderful man, played Abraham. And we just went. I wish there was more to describe the creative process of it, but truly it was working on a lot of adrenaline and a lot of instinct and little money and little time to create a project that we were all very passionate about and that we believed in. I believed so much, and still do believe so much in Dan Brown and his writing and his script for Your Lucky Day, his directing, his future career that he's going to have. And so I was just excited to service his story and his vision as Anna Marlene. I was excited to play a pregnant woman. I have not been pregnant in my real life, so that required a little bit of research and preparation, and I really wanted to honor that journey that she goes on, because she's not just in a life and death hostage situation, she's doing it 8-9 months pregnant. So she is operating at a level the rest of the men in the story can't even begin to comprehend. So I was excited to approach that physical nature of her, and I was excited to finally be in a role that was physical in a very demanding and commanding space where she did not just allow herself to be a victim. She didn't allow herself to wallow. She is a survivor, and she was going to fight her way through this, hell or high water, for her partner and her baby and their future.
If I understood correctly, Jessica Garza, you had a little bit less than 6 days to prepare before the beginning of the filming process. And I assume that it wasn't very easy because of the intense scenes with tension. Can you tell us a little bit more about that preparation during those 144 hours?
Yes. So it was from like when my deal closed to go into LA, it was a matter of 6 days or maybe 7, but very limited amount of time that I spent doing a lot of of my work and my process to be prepared. But I also, what made it so easy was when I showed up to set and had such great scene partners, in Elliot, in Angus, and Musa. Everybody was incredible to work with, and that always makes the job so much easier. I always like to say I want to be the least experienced or the worst actor on a set, because then I only have things to learn from. And this was daunting for me because it was my first feature film in a leading role, like #1 on the call sheet. I'm in a lot of it, most of it. I'm in a lot of different frames, and we have very little time to shoot this. So there is not a lot of room for messing up or for messing up takes. A lot of, this would be a good question to ask Dan Brown, but I believe a lot of my coverage, we did anywhere between like 1 to 3 takes, very limited takes, limited amount of time to get it right. And so that was also helpful to the process of just being on my toes and full of adrenaline, and that lends itself to this story. As I'm sure you know, it's very intense and the stakes are very high. And so it helps that being on set felt a little bit of like a pressure cooker scenario, just because of how important I felt about it, how much I cared about it, how much I wanted to do a good job. And again, just how limited time we had to just get it right and then move on to the next thing. So a lot of just not having a lot of time to prepare helped me not overthink it, just go for it. And that was a different experience than a lot of the ones I've had where I've had a lot more time to prepare or think about it.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza, you were in a pressure cooker delivering every single line within 3 takes, and that includes some sentences such as, does he have a phone? What about the fingerprint? Or setting an out of office reply.
Yes, she's very, Anna Marlene is very savvy. It's easy to have a preconceived notion about her because she appears in this cute, pink waitress, outfit. And she's very pregnant. And so it's easy to maybe make some judgments about her being tired or not educated or any of the things that, we want to say that we can view in a negative light. But she is incredibly savvy, smart. She's got great instinct. She's fearless. She's willing to take risks. And one of my favorite things about the character that Dan Brown wrote is that she has such an incredible arc from what I think audiences think of her at the beginning to the end.
The arc is quietly incredible, Jessica Garza. And the story is telling the audience about that lottery ticket that generated a succession of conflict from your character being pregnant and taking a bullet, a position that we could describe as dreadful, a little bit like in the television series Penny Dreadful, The City of Angels.
Wow, I love the transitions. I love because it starts, I never know where it's going to go, but then it lands perfectly. Yes, Penny Dreadful, City of Angels is a series from the brilliant mind of John Logan, who also created and wrote the original Penny Dreadful. But our show, City of Angels, lives in a completely separate world, even though it hails from the same person. It takes place in Los Angeles, 1938, and it is a show about the history of Los Angeles, and a show about good versus evil and how these two things go together. So we have a lot of real historical things that were taking place at that time in Los Angeles, like Mexican American communities being torn apart in the name of progress, like Nazis closely being able to successfully attempt to infiltrate Los Angeles. I mean, and then we have the classic Penny Dreadful element to it, which contains some like fantasy, some spiritual, mystical elements, like in the character Santa Muerte, and then her sister played by Natalie Dormer. There's a lot going on, but it all is central to just the fight of good versus evil.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza. That television series called Penny Dreadful, City of Angels is depicting the good and the evils, and you're playing a character called Josefina Vega. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you connected to her, because she's going through the idea of reclaiming her voice and path, especially through resilience and faith?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way you put it. I really don't even need to add to it. But I relate to Josefina a lot because I don't know. I think this is explored a little bit in like her bedroom. You can see it. But she is was so enthralled and amazed and astonished by Hollywood at the time. She wanted to be an actress. She worshipped movie stars and movies, and her entire bedroom wall is just covered in magazine photos. And so obviously, being an actress myself, I very much related to that dream that she also has. But sadly, for her, that dream is so much further from any chance at reality, since it is Los Angeles and it is 1938, and she's just a Mexican American girl, living in a small neighborhood with her family. But she goes on this journey where tragically she is assaulted by a police officer, and that has stricken her in a place that is just unspeakable. And all she knows is how much she desperately wants to be heard and understood. And she finds that comfort in the arms of Sister Molly, played by Carrie Bechet. She is a TV evangelist. She is not just a woman of very strong and powerful faith, but also a performer. And Josefina is just so entranced by her and the message that she shares. So she leans into the faith, leans into the church, and finds herself going down a similar path as Sister Molly.
She is going in a similar path, Jessica Garza, and your character is moving from being a sort of background figure to someone who shines to the point of having an entire episode named after yourself, which is the number 4, called Josefina and the Holy Spirit.
Yes, I was very excited and terrified when I opened up my email. When I opened up my email inbox and saw my character's name in the title, I was like, oh no. Penny Dreadful City of Angels was a huge ensemble. It had a huge ensemble cast, and we all played pivotal parts in larger and smaller ways. And episode 4 is where my character starts to take a larger step into this world. And I was so scared because, as you know, the content of that episode is very serious and sensitive and delicate and requires so much care and thought. And that's how I wanted to approach it. And as the series goes on, we, learn more about her and her journey. And I wish so desperately that we got to continue, into another season or so. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I'm so grateful to have been on that show, because John Logan is a poet. His words just it's like butter, in your mouth. They just melt, and they're so good. And I had never dreamed that I would be in a period piece, just because we often don't see maybe a lot of people who would look like me in a period piece. And so I was so grateful and honored that we were in this period piece with the costumes and the cars and the sets, and the production team was so incredible in their design. I mean, we built an entire city for that show. A lot of what you're seeing when you're watching that is not CGI, and it's not in the heart of Los Angeles. It is on a set that they built. And that was such an incredible experience. And I hope I get to experience that again. But if I don't, I'm so grateful I did. There was just everything: dancing, singing, music, anything that you would ever want that show had.
In definitive, Josefina Vega has 3 brothers, Raul, Tiago, and Mateo. And Jessica Garza has 3 times fewer brothers, but he is smarter than Raul, stronger than Tiago, and wiser than Mateo. And his name is Michael Garza the First.
Yes, I do. I have a real life younger brother. I've had many fictional brothers, and they've all taken me on as a sister of their own. But I am a big sister to Michael, my younger brother, and he is an actor as well. And I'm so glad that, I used to be like, oh, of course he wants to do what I want to do. It's so annoying. But now that we're both adults and our relationship has grown into more than just being siblings, but a real friendship, I'm so glad he does what I does and what I do. And he's even expanded upon it. He writes and he's looking to direct in the future. He's so smart and so talented. And I'm so grateful that we have each other to do our self-tapes with because nobody else wants to do them.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza. And I would love to explore your artistic journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about growing up in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, the DFW, encompassing 11 counties with Michael Garza?
Yes, I grew up a little bit outside of Dallas, so in the DFW area, and I'm a Texas girl. Michael's a Texas boy. We kind of, when we were younger, we just loved performing. We would always put on plays in in our home, and we had, oh my gosh, so many costumes and props and music, and we would have a narrative that we would try to stick to, not exactly a script, but a narrative that we would try to stick to. And we would sell tickets to our family members and put on shows for them and perform. And so that's where our love for performing and for acting and writing and directing and all these things that we love now, that's where it started. It evolved as I got a little bit older and in middle school. I started to realize that this was not just something people do for fun in their homes, but that they do it professionally as their careers. I met a classmate who she was in Barney and like commercials. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, where do you go? How do you do this? This is a thing. And she kind of introduced me to a local acting studio that taught classes. And my parents enrolled me because they very much believed in servicing their children's dreams. They wanted their children to do something that they loved. Because while they had jobs that they were content with, they didn't love them. And so it was important for them to put their kids in soccer and basketball and piano and acting, whatever. It just so turns out that acting is the one that stuck. So when I was in high school, I started thinking about my future and what I wanted to do. And my parents really wanted me to go to college, but I never really felt like that was in the cards for me. And I asked them, what if I graduate early and I spent what would be my senior year in Los Angeles auditioning? And they agreed, shockingly. I mean, it just speaks to how incredible and supportive they are as parents. But so they agreed, and me, Michael, and my mom went to LA when I was 17 or so, and we started auditioning in the heart of it all. And I think that first year I booked a guest star on NCIS, and I tested for a pilot, and that was enough success to prove to my dad and my mom that we could continue this journey on and on. And eventually we just never talked about leaving LA. We were there and we were doing this thing.
Absolutely, Jessica Garza. And as of today, your brother, Michael Garza, is still in Los Angeles, sipping large pumpkin spice blue cheese matcha while you are in New York City. And the only explanation I can find is that you're splitting the US territories to better have the exclusive control over the domestic market.
Victor, you can't just expose us like this. You can't just tell everyone our master plan. That's exactly it, yes.
This was the master planned reveal. And in conclusion, I am looking forward to appreciate the Garza rise from the Coconut Syndrome by Carol Palacios Chavez to now that large pumpkin blue cheese matcha that you're defending in the recent Arambulo Bacani short film. Thank you very much, Jessica Garza.
Thank you so much, Victor. I had so much fun.